Long live the troublemakers. Long live the troublemakers. Long live the troublemakers. How inspiring. How inspiring, this life. Especially the kind and gentle troublemakers. And this is a kind and gentle man. And when I first met him in June, I was incredibly struck by that. A kind and gentle troublemaker. A man that China should be proud of instead of arresting and torturing. A kind and gentle troublemaker in the tradition of Gandhi, of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Martin Luther King, Tank Man in Tiananmen Square, who inspire us. We think about the miracles of what had to take place for Chen Guangcheng to be here with us today. The miracles of every moment of his life in his little village, the miracle of his conscience, the miracle of his inspirations, of that he could actually make a change in his world, in our world, the miracle of how he survived the years of imprisonment and torture and beatings, the privation from his family, the miracle of having found Wei Jing. The miracle of having escaped, the miracle of having the friends who got him to the U.S. Embassy, the miracle of the U.S. Embassy, the miracle of a country like the U.S. that does care, the miracle of all the machinations that had to take place to get him to the U.S., the miracle of NYU, the miracle of the Lantos Foundation, the miracle of all the people here, a lot of miracles. It begs the question, I think, that we need to be, all of us, a miracle for others, that we have that possibility. The world challenges us constantly to be that miracle for everyone in our life, even the ones we don't know. I was thinking last night we had this wonderful, wonderful dinner, and it reminded me of other dinners I had where people who had survived extraordinary adversity, and the challenge made them better people and more committed to help others. This sense that there is a, what would be the word? Solidarity. A solidarity of strangers. How much happens that we do, our actions that have ramifications way beyond ourselves, and how nothing could have happened in Chen Guangcheng's life without that solidarity of strangers who were on the same wavelength, countries that were on the same wavelength. You know, I'm very proud of our country that we do speak out when we do. I wish we spoke out more and more clearly and more consistency. But I think we're all deeply proud of this country and what we have achieved, what we stand for, what we'll continue to stand for. It's something extraordinary on this planet. We're looked to for this. It is really who we are, deep inside. You know, we are kind and gentle troublemakers, and we should retain that. The first meeting I had with the Chens was in June, and they hadn't been, I don't know how long you'd been in the U.S. at that point. Wei Jing, how long had you been here? About a month? And they were, you know, obviously a little bit insecure about what was going on. Their kids were just starting school. They didn't speak any English. But I was taken again by a kind of, a very simple kind of courage that the universe would take care of them because they were in the right, and a willingness to kind of go with the flow. One thing that struck me, we had a very long conversation, and one of the things that struck me when I was asking the situation in China, which Guangcheng will be speaking to, he said, look, what people don't understand around the world is this authoritarian structure is not secure. There's the illusion of security. It's our job to keep reminding them that they cannot be secure in the choices and actions that they've taken. That's our job. The U.S. can do that constantly. And we do quite well, but we can do more. But constantly tell truth to power, in this case. You cannot be secure as long as you're in the wrong, as long as you torture your people, as long as there is no rule of law. Continually tell them they cannot be secure. A very powerful statement from a kind and gentle man who's come from where he's come and has landed where he's landed. I want to speak very briefly about Tom Lantos, who was a good friend of mine, and a good friend that I really knew from his work, human rights in general, but when he started the Human Rights Caucus with John Porter, who's no longer with us, but it was an amazing event, and it was courageous, and it honored His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I believe the first time that they held their prize. And it was through his connection with the Tibetans and his willingness to speak up for them that I got to know him and respect him extraordinarily. And I just want to honor our Tibetan brothers and sisters who are here as well. I see sitting over here. Could you please stand up? I see many of our Tibetan brothers and sisters here. Thank you, Lodi, Buchan, thank you all. They're on the same path. They're brothers and sisters with our Chinese brothers and sisters. And the government in China has done their best to separate them, create problems between them, demonize the Tibetans, make a case for vengeance and problems between these two peoples, and there's no basis for it. They're brothers and sisters in yearning for the same thing. With us, with all peoples of the world, this solidarity of strangers who are yearning for the same thing. We're all in this together in a very, very deep and powerful way, and we will succeed. I'm very fortunate and very honored to be here, and among, I look around the room here and I see so many of what I mentioned before, troublemakers, and on the stage here, troublemakers. And there was a joke last night. It was someone had made a toast to the ex-hippies in the crowd. And many of us stood up and said, yes, that's me. I have a feeling there are a lot of ex-hippie troublemakers here in the crowd who've put on their blue suits and ties now and dresses and are doing it a different way. But let's maintain a little bit of that hippie troublemaker in us as we continue work that we do, and don't lose that kind of fresh and naive passion for changing the world. The man we're honoring today is someone who has inspired me and us in an extraordinary way, and I'm so happy to be here to give him the Tom Lantos Human Rights Prize.
今天我十分荣幸地站在这里，接受于著名人权捍卫者汤姆·兰托斯。
Hello, I'm truly honored to be standing here today as the recipient of this highest honor in the name of the great human rights defender, Congressman Tom Lantos. Such an honor brings me such encouragement and fills me with emotion. Although this award is being given to me, Chen Guangcheng, I feel that it is a strong validation of everyone working to defend human rights, social justice, and universal values.
所有从事捍卫人权、社会公正等普世价值 工作者的肯定。我和兰托斯议员都有从魔爪逃脱的共同经历。当去年6月我得知获此奖项的时候，我明显
Both Congressman Lantos and I share the experience of escaping evil. In June of last year, when I heard that I was being given this award, I felt a profound resonance in my
这种
heart
魔窟的
with
经历
Mr. Lantos.
使我们
The shared experience
更
in
深
evil's
刻地
lair
意识到
made us both understand the
见恶
necessity of taking
立即
immediate
行
action
动
in
的
the
重要
face
性。
of wrongdoing. Who can know
我们
how
分
many
秒的
seekers of
懈怠，
justice and human rights
就
will
会
suffer
有
persecution
不知多少
destruction, or
主
even
持
death
公正、
at the hands
捍
of
卫人
dictators
权者
if we are
遭到
idle even
独
for
裁者
just
的
one
迫害、
moment.
摧残。
We must not
甚
only
至
remember
失
the
去生命。
atrocities of the fascists, but also
我们必须
recognize that today
谨
authoritarianism
记当
is
年
firmly
法西
entrenched
斯的暴
and that
行，
the barbarism of the
更要充分
authoritarian
认识
system
到今
is the
天
greatest threat to civilized
专制的
societies.
传染性。
Employing every method available,
野
authoritarian
蛮的
governments will do
独裁
their
体
utmost
制
to stop the
是
mouths
人类
and
文
bind
明
the
社会的
spirits
最
of
大
good-willed
威胁
people.
其正以各种手段试图封住善良人们的口，扭曲着我们的心灵。要明白，独裁专制体制的本性就是反民主自由、反宪政法治的。其
We
就
must
是
be
要
clear.
垄断所有的权利，
Dictatorships are inherently in opposition to democracy and
表现
freedom.
为
They are
它可以
opposed to
任意地
constitutionalism
强奸你，
and the rule of
而
law
你只
and
要
will
一反抗
monopolize all power for
它就
their
把
own
你
benefit.
变
They
成
can
罪
ravage you at will. If you resist,
你若
they will make you a
再为
criminal.
此
If
喊
you
冤，
protest, they will make
还
you
有
their
把你
enemy.
视为敌人。
The system starkly and inherently
和
contradicts
民
democratic
主体制两
institutions.
者从
If you
根
approach
本
them
上
with
就是
dialogue
水
and
火
reason
不能
in the hope that they will give up some of their authoritarian power,
没有足够的
you will
压
in
力，
effect become an accomplice
要
to their
想
work.
通过对话、讲理，让独裁者放弃专权，无异于与虎谋皮。我是不幸中的幸运儿，在中国，我长期遭受党委政府的非人的迫害，同时。
Despite my misfortunes, I have been lucky.
各界
For many years, I have suffered inhumane prosecution
厚爱。
by the party authorities,
去
but
年
I've also been
5月
blessed with
份
the attention, care, and
在
kindness
各
from
方
people
努
around
力
the
帮助
world.
下，
Last May, with the help of so many individuals, I was able to come to the U.S.
得到
with my
了
family.
善良的
We have
美
been
国
warmly
人的
welcomed
热情
and cared
接
for
待
by the American people, and I'd like to express my deepest thanks to all of you for your concern and support.
向你们说
I will remember this always.
感
I would
谢大家
also like to thank the
关
many
注
brave friends who came from far and near to make their way to my village,
我也
Dongshigu.
要特别
Your
感
fearlessness
谢
is the
来
crystallization
自
of human
五湖
conscience.
四海
I
勇
cannot thank
闯
each of you
攻势的
individually in your
朋友
presence, but I will nonetheless be
你们的
eternally grateful to
无
you.
畏精神凝聚了人类的良知。我无法一一当面道谢，可我在心中永远感激你们。现在我全家身体上都自由了，但我的精神却不能完全自由，因为还有太多的我的同胞、我的家人依然生活在最
Today,
专
I and my immediate family are free
我
in
的子
body,
女也因为我的
but in mind, we cannot be free.
当
Because so many of my compatriots, including many family members, are still living under the evils of the authoritarian system.
他已经
For instance, local party authorities are making my nephew pay the price for my escape.
同意所见，
At this time, he's already been sent to the very jail where I spent so many years,
还没
and
有
our family and lawyers have not been able to see him, have not been allowed to see him.
高志胜
Many others share similar experiences.
目前仍
There is the Beijing lawyer, Gao Jinsheng, who is
即使
still in
在他
prison in
缓刑
Xinjiang
期
in
他
northwest
也
China.
长期
Even during his probation, he was disappeared
被酷刑
and
的状态
tortured. Unimaginably, on the day of his probation was up,
在
he was
缓
put back
刑
in
的
prison
最后一天
and is not allowed
将
regular
其收监，
family visits.
现
And
在
there is
家
the
人
journalist,
依然不能
Ji
正常
Zhonghui, who was jailed for his outspokenness. Just when he had almost completed his prison term, his sentence was extended and his family continues to live under conditions of extreme
在
duress,
面临释
threats,
放时
and terror.
又被加刑，
Liu Xiaobo's wife,
其
Liu
家
Jia,
人
has
长
been
期
living under
生
house
活
arrest
在
for more than 2
困
years.
苦威胁
The Mongolian writer, Ha Da, served 17 years in
小波的
prison.
妻子
2 years ago, his term was finished, but he is still being illegally
待了
detained.
2年多了。
And of course, there are countless petitioners from all over the country who are
他
detained,
出狱后
beaten, or
和
held
其
in
家
black
人
jails,
仍常
suffering
受到
wrongdoing,
非法
injury, and trumped-up
各
charges.
地的
These are not isolated
上访
cases of
行动
injustice, but represent a
不断
reality in China
被抓
today.
被
Legal
捕
protection
被
and
关
justice
进被监狱
do not exist
蒙
or
冤受
are
害
only rarely available for most citizens.
他们不仅仅代表着一件件的冤案，更是代表着中国无法无天、公正难求的实际状况。在党领导一切的情况下，谈人权面对的困难可想而知，做人权就更难了。政治改革和人权改革是无法分开的。政治改革
Human rights reform is
我觉得
inseparable from political
本
reform.
身就是一个
However,
保
under
守
the leadership of the party,
妥协
simply speaking about human rights
并无
is
新
no
意，
easy task, and of course,
可是
defending human
社会
rights
的
is
发
even more
展
difficult.
并不
But
会
social
以
progress
当权
does
者
not
的
come
意
from
志
those
为
in
主
power, whether or not they
不
wish it to
管
be the
当
case.
权者是否
China
愿意，
will see a transformation.
中国必然
How do
要
we
发
encourage
生
this
一场
transformation?
变革。
I believe the most important
那么
thing is
我
to
们
shift our attention
怎么
from the
推动
leadership
这场变革？
to the people.
我觉得最重要的是要把注意力从政府领导人转移到中国社会的普通民众身上。民众的维权活动需要有人支持、鼓励，因此，国际社会的关注很重要。
To support their activities in moving towards a society that respects human rights,
国际关注
the people need to
有
feel
肯定他们
encouraged. That is why international attention is so important, especially because of the following 3 points.
受到媒
First,
体关注的
International concern validates the often difficult work of social justice.
不
Second,
会那么
if the media illustrates the activities of the so-called black hands who punish those who seek justice, their actions are likely to be less extreme.
会让更多的
Third,
人
Media reports disseminate information that can lead to an awakening of the populace and cause more and more people to demand their
会使
rights
更多的
and to
人
demand protection of their rights under
觉
the
醒
law.
从而会有更多的人关心人权问题，也会开始要求他们的合法人权。今天我希望能借这次机会，表扬其他在中国的维权人士。最近几年来，有无数敢于向邪恶说不，并为了社会公正而奋斗的勇士们。
That is why I'm happy to take this opportunity to mention some human rights workers. In the past few years, there have been countless human rites warriors working for social justice who have dared to say no
善
in
良
the face of evil. There are some you will have heard of,
因为
like
做出
Ai Weiwei, Liu Xiaobo,
正义
and
之举
Hu Zhao,
而不
and many
断
others you
受
may
到
not be
党
familiar
权
with, such as
不
Liu
同
Ping,
程度的
Zhu Zhengxi,
打压
Shangxi,
迫害。
Liu Zhaohui, varying, and Li Bifang.
我家乡的
These people, as well
维
as
权坊
innumerable netizens,
刘国会
have all suffered
为蓝
varying
绿
levels
等
of unceasing
六位
oppression
女士
and persecution for
在
their
北京
actions in the cause of
高山
righteousness.
东驻京办
A few days
部门的
ago, petitioners
打
Liu
手
Zhaohui
绑
and
架
Wei Lan,
殴
as
打
well as 6 other women from my hometown who have traveled to
秦玉
Beijing, were
会打
kidnapped
满脸是血
and beaten by thugs working for the
其他人
Shandong
不同
provincial
程度的
office
受
in
伤
Shanghai, in Beijing. One of them, Xin Yuling, was severely beaten around the face, and others sustained varying levels of injury. Last Friday, a student from Hainan, Dong Zhensheng, went to see my aged mother, who was just coming back from the hospital. Just as she was about to leave, her father called her on the phone to tell her that the police had arrived at his house. He said she must go immediately to the public security, otherwise her student status would be jeopardized.
说公安正在通缉你，要你快回来到公安局去一趟，否则学校不发毕业证给你。近来很多与我通过电话的乡邻被强行带到派出所做笔录，威胁要其说出都和我说了什么，连路透社。
Recently, many friends and neighbors who I've been in touch with by phone have been taken into custody by the authorities for questioning. They've been threatened and made to describe what our conversations have been about. Even foreign journalists are not immune. A Reuters journalist who has interviewed me was contacted by the foreign ministry and threatened. They told the reporter that Chen Guangcheng is an American spy. We cannot keep silent in the face of these phenomena. It is my sincere hope that in mentioning these people, you will come to know them and understand their circumstances and try to help them in their times of trouble.
开始想办法了解他们的情况，去协助他们。美国政府也应就中共外交部上述说法要求其澄清事实。对于美国政府而言，应该坚持民主、自由、人权、言论自由等最基本的原则标准。
As for the United States government, I urge you to continue unwaveringly from your basic principles of democracy, human rights, and freedom of speech. You must not give an inch or offer the smallest compromise when it comes to these basic principles. Even though the United States now sees a softening of its economy and is clearly difficult to shift attention away from issues of finance and economy, remember that placing undue value on material life will cause a deficit in spiritual life. You must establish a long-term plan for human rights and not compromise on it, ever.
谢谢大家，谢谢。
What's more, the American people have a responsibility in human rights because you are able to force the government to live up to its promises. You have freedom of speech and the right to fair elections. You should use these rights to encourage your government to fulfill its responsibilities. If you find it difficult to choose a candidate based solely on economic policies, you can vote according to the human rights record. If a politician cares about human rights, it's likely he or she will care about your well-being. Will a government that cares only about money govern responsibly?
一个只认得钱的个人或政府会真正负责任吗？尽管中共当权者对维权者的迫害不择手段，幸运的是，人类历史已无数次证明，人性的善良与求真，暴力。
Even though the Chinese government will do anything to persecute those who stand up for human rights, fortunately, history shows clearly and unfailingly that aggression and violence cannot destroy the truth and cannot eliminate what is good and kind in human nature. Moreover, as the Chinese saying describes, if you carry the hearts and the minds of the people, you will carry all below heaven. The government should take note of this. There's never been a dynasty that was able to achieve longevity through forceful oppression. In China, in the last few years, there have been more than 200,000 protests every year, covering every issue imaginable. More and more people are overcoming their fear to take action. The waves of citizens who have traveled to my village is the best example.
维权人士、律师及民众、国际各人权机构、各国政府都能负起自己的责任，这种社会责任，特别是以民主、自由、人权为立国之本的美国做好表率。大家团结起来，一起在人权方面向前推进，对任何无理要求都要毫不退让，哪怕是以高额订单的来诱惑。我知道订单很重要。
I sincerely hope that everyone, petitioners, human rights workers, civil rights groups, national governments, and especially the United States government, will come together to encourage progress in human rights. There should be no compromise, even if there are large business interests at stake. Dignity, freedom, and justice are more important.
贝尔先生，谢谢大家，谢谢。
In 2011, the actor, Christian Bale, went to Dongshegu village to find me. We were not able to see each other, and he knew he might hurt his own career, but he went anyway. He earned the respect of the Chinese people and people around the world, not just as celebrity, but a truly decent human being. An individual, an organization, a government, they're all the same. As long as you are doing the right thing, you will be respected and validated by the people and be enriched in both tangible and intangible ways. In many ways, it is the intangible riches that are the hardest to come by.
获得一种无形的财富，有了无形的财富，有形的财富会更容易，反之则更难。中国转型的关键时刻，国际社会的关注非常重要，但中华民族的儿女们必须明白，别人可以帮助我们，可是主角仍然是我们自己。民主自由的公民社会不是等来的，是用实际行动争取来的。只要我们齐心协力，战胜恐惧，定能够救国家于绑架之困，解政府于。
In this moment of transformation in China, international pressure is extremely important. However, the Chinese sons and daughters back home need to understand that although others can help us, we need to be the main actors in this effort. Democracy, freedom, and justice don't just happen. We must strive for them through action. Last year, Myanmar lifted the ban on political parties, and last Friday it abolished media censorship. What the people in Myanmar do, we can do too. Each of us has something to contribute. As long as we work together as one to overcome fear, we will unquestionably be able to free the nation from bondage. We need to bring an end, this period of history, to an end, this period of history during which the communist authority maintains a monopoly on power and enslaves the people through a leadership of thieves, and establish a truly civil society. Anything is possible in this world. The strength and potential of all of us are boundless. Please believe in yourselves. Let's work together and make this world a better place. Thank you.
授予我的这个家，非常感谢。
On behalf of the Lantos family, we want to thank all of you for your participation here today. 5 years ago this week, I sat at my grandfather's bedside a few blocks away as he distilled his 8 decades of life down to 2 things. The 2 things that he felt at the end were the only things that really mattered. First were the people he loved, and not only his family, but also his friends, his staff, his colleagues who he had served with over the course of many years. And second, the principles that he loved, the values that had carried him through not only the darkest days of his life, but also his time at Congress. Today we stand at the confluence of those 2 great loves of his life. And I know that he would be pleased, I don't think he would be surprised, because ultimately he knew that these 2 come together. I hope that as we go forward from this event today, we can make it our mission to build a more perfect union between the principles that define my grandfather's life and the people that define my grandfather's life. And we look forward to working with all of you in that effort in the years ahead. Thank you.